And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Reading disorders occur when a person has trouble reading words or understanding what they had read. Dyslexia is one type of reading disorder. It generally refers to difficulties reading individual words and can lead to problems understanding texts. On today's Open Connection, we're going to open our archives to bring you this story from 1990.
You know, you couldn't do something that the other kids could, you know, and it got to a point where you didn't care no more. You know,
he felt really inadequate, but when his family came to the Northwest, he was able to get some assistance.
Until I come to Kitimat, my self-esteem was right down, right? There was nothing there, so.
So you had really low self-esteem, but you knew that you weren't unintelligent, didn't you?
No, yes, in myself, I knew my abilities. In a lot of cases, it's hard to get out because it's degrading to go someplace and not know how to read something or how to do something, because you have to read it first to do it.
He was also able to establish a relationship with a teacher at Mount Elizabeth High School, with whom he still keeps in touch.
Well, I met up with this special ed course with Mr. Aston, Jim Aston, and which helped me considerably. He got my self-esteem and gave me the courage to carry on with myself.
Aston still recalls his first meeting with Walter.
I remember a boy coming into my room to see me, and he had been sent by the director of instruction because he had some reading problems. And when he came into the room, he said, obviously, that he had some reading problems. I said, "What are those reading problems?" He said, "I can't read." So I said, "Well, most people have some difficulty in reading. You know, what are your difficulties?" And he said, "I can't read at all. I can't even read letters."
So he didn't know the alphabet, in other words?
He didn't know the alphabet. He had problems with numbers. With anything printed on paper, he had a problem with it.
Although Walter was started on a corrective reading program that started at the very beginning, the school just wasn't set up to deal with his reading disability.
We had a lot of problems in those days with teaching somebody of Walter's level. We just simply were not set up for that. So in school, there wasn't the capability then of having somebody work one-to-one with him. He was with us for 2 years, and by the second year, we had an aide who spent a great deal of time with him, but we really weren't set up for working one-to-one with somebody with those specific disabilities.
The good news is that things are different nowadays.
And there's more funding, and there are specific regulations so that those needs are met. Also, there's a great deal more research now, which has led to more successful strategies for dealing with that.
Although Aston is the first to admit he's not a reading specialist, he explains what people like Walter can be up against when they try to learn to read.
When we look at letters, we tend to think of them as a whole letter, so that when you read words, even if you concentrate on the letters, you see them as whole letters. Then it was believed that the brain, and probably still is now, that the brain didn't see letters that way. When you try to break down letters, and I have 4 simple ones, a nice word love on there, when you break it down, you see that letters are composed of certain symbols. You have to put together those symbols to make a letter. And there are very few basic symbols: vertical, horizontal, convex left, convex right, oblique left, oblique right, convex up, convex down. You can make any letter out of those symbols. If, however, you don't see those symbols correctly because a message from your eye to your brain doesn't transmit them properly, then you'll keep getting stuck even as you see letters. It took months to get Walter as far as the end of the alphabet so that he was 100% when he recognized letters. And when I say months, we're talking of hundreds of hours of work. We often spent 4, 5, 6 hours at night at the high school trying to break through this.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. In 2010, author Anthony Brown wrote a story about a very clever white bear and his magic pencil. Everything the bear drew became real. Let us return to the archives to discover how the book Bear Hunt helped Walter achieve his dream.
When Walter left school, he could read at about a grade 3 or 4 level, and he was successful in finding employment at Alcan. How do people cope when they can't read?
Well, you'll find being a non-reader, there's tricks under every table. You'll find, if you're a non-reader, that you'll find excuses not to read something. And there's always a friend beside you that can read, and there's always an excuse that you can use for them to read you the problem that you have.
Walter lost the reading ability he had, but not for want of trying to get more assistance. It was no surprise to Aston that he finally knocked on the right door, that of the Community Services Society.
I sent him.
You sent him?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Once we had a demonstrated need, then we could start doing something. And over the years, he's come back to me many times saying, "Is there anything yet?" And every time I had to tell him, no, there isn't. He didn't just ask me, he asked local agencies, people in the community, and always received the answer, no, there is no help. If there was any kind of help for him, it was from a person who had no expertise in what they were trying to teach him.
The Society has provided a little seed money to start a literacy project. What was needed most was someone to coordinate the program. Retired teacher Jeanette Camazola stepped forward, and she's excited about the prospects.
Initially, I took it on as a challenge. Having taught so many years in the public school system in the primary grades, I felt that I could help adults who were unable to tackle reading.
A great deal of effort has gone into developing a local training program for the more than 20 people willing to be volunteer tutors.
There are programs available. There are guides made by the Ministry of Advanced Education. These guides are fairly good, but after reading it through, I felt that a live presentation by reading experts in town here would get across to the tutors the difficulties of a beginner reader.
What's the key to teaching adults to read?
First of all, for the tutor, realizing that they have survived and survived very well in this very complex world, and they have many abilities which I can never hope to master. They are ready, when they choose to tackle something which for them has been a closed book.
Many people are unwilling to admit they're illiterate, but their privacy will be respected.
Jeanette, will confidentiality be guaranteed in the Kitimat project?
Absolutely. I have 2 students I've interviewed, and their details and their progress I carry with me all the time. It's in no book and no computer.
There's bound to be emotional interaction between a non-reader and a tutor. But even after 32 years of teaching, she was nervous about her first lesson with Walter.
I'd like to emphasize I'd never met a non-reader before. I really
in all those 32 years of teaching?
Well, the children I'd been working with were 7, so we can
Yes.
perhaps say some of them were non-readers.
Yes.
I'd never met an adult non-reader. And so I was prepared for my first encounter with Walter, being strained, and he was nervous, but I was too. And but his absolute persistence in getting this program going and helped me as well. The tutors too were so enthusiastic. I just had to go forward with it.
Are you going to try to match tutors to specific people when the program is launched?
Yes, I've had an interview, phone interview with all the tutors, and of course I know them personally now. And we've tried to find out what interests they have, what kind of age group they would like to deal with. And some I know are zeroing in on beginning reading problems, and others I think might be happier with after the coding skills have been mastered and moving into fluency and comprehension, things like that.
Walter DeRoche's reading has improved after several lessons. It's very important to him at this point in his life to finally overcome his disability.
Well, it's the funniest thing, because I have a little boy who's 5 years old, and he likes story read to him. And you kind of wake up and you say, oh, listen, I didn't want my wife to do it all the time, and it's time for me to do it.
What does it say?
You know, it's my turn, as in fact.
Yeah, you're a busy man.
And it goes on, because it's like an open book that's closed to me, because I can never, it's like a door that you can never get through. I know a lot of other people out there that I went to high school with
you need a little help, 'cause that's when we
that are in the same boat as I am,
it's what we
maybe
call
not as bad,
an I word.
and they are willing to step up and learn something.
The tutoring is quite intensive and requires a real commitment on both sides.
And I
Right.
haven't
Good.
started
Good.
painting yet.
Good. Oh, aren't you getting marvelous? You just needed to color in a few.
And Walter
AI
will finally
says-
be able to read a story to his young son.
Now, I know you've been listening to the tape I made, and you've been reading it to Matthew. Would you like to read it to us?
I'll try.
Yeah. Oh, you'll do very well. This book was given by Matthew's kindergarten teacher to me, so it's one he really likes.
Okay. One day there went for a walk. Two hunters were hunting.
Good.
They
Saw.
saw bear.
Good.
Statistics show there are bound to be many non-readers in Kitimat.
Out.
Walter DeRoche would like to get them into the program.
Why they don't want to step up, I can understand.
Good.
Because they're afraid they're never going to be helped, and then they got to be within, they have the extra problems. The reason why I'm stepping up is because I know there's a problem out there, and there's no more than me out there to help, and I'm not illiterate no more. Okay, I'm working on this. By next year or the year after, I will be like everybody else in the world. You know, like I know that now, and I want everybody else to know that. You know, that there's help here for us if this can get off the ground.
You feel as if you've broken through a barrier.
Yeah, through that door that no one can get through, and once you open it up, it's a bright world.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Let me win, but if I cannot win, let me be brave in the attempt. That is the Special Olympics Athlete's Oath. Established in 1980, Special Olympics BC is an accredited chapter of Special Olympics Canada. Let us return to the archives with the BC Special Olympics Coordinator, Jill Johnson.
This summer, 1990, will be the first time the Special Olympics are held in BC. They'll be held in Vancouver, and a contingent from the Northwest is attending. Jill Johnson is the BC program coordinator for the Special Olympics. Jill, what kind of competition or what kind of participation do you have from the Northwest?
Actually, this year we'll be looking at 7 participants going down there to the Nationals and competing in a variety of sports, everything from, let's see, powerlifting to swimming this time around.
What are some of the special benefits that a special athlete might get from participating in sports and in Olympics of this nature?
Well, it's the same as you or I going out and competing. It really raises your self-confidence and self-esteem and makes you work with life a little bit better, and you learn how to lose gracefully, which sometimes that happens in life. And basically, it's all the basic ingredients to any sport endeavor. You really thrive on winning, of course, and doing your personal best, but the difference for these guys is that their personal best is really what matters more so than coming in first. So they have really taught us a lot about how to live and how to compete and how to appreciate the little niceties of life.
You've been a volunteer for a long time. Can you think of any one particular instance, one athlete that being involved in sports made a big difference in their life?
Oh, there's so many. There's so many. There's one fellow that I can speak of from Smithers. He's a bowler up there, and he started in the program about 4 years ago, and he couldn't speak, and he did not speak at all. Every time he'd go out to practice, he'd go ahead and stay in his own little world. And now he's to the point that he's a regular member of the community. He's talking to everybody. He's involved in a regular men's league up there, and he's also involved in Special Olympics, and he's just come out and flowered on his own. And that self-confidence that Special Olympics gives to some of our mentally handicapped people in the community helps them in the rest of their lives.
Because this is the first time we're having the Nationals in BC, there'll be a lot of interest, a lot of attention this summer. Are you looking for more volunteers in the Northwest? Are we up to par?
Actually, no. There's a limited number of volunteers that do the majority of the work. And I guess with most volunteer organizations, in that area, that happens often. So what we're trying to do is promote the sport and promote people getting involved, and from my personal experience, it's really rewarding. It gives you something that you would never normally have. I mean, oftentimes you go through life thinking, oh geez, I really want a Mercedes, or I could really use that dishwasher, and then you go into a Special Olympics program and you see they have very little, but their limited successes are what count. And it makes you realize, oh, well, geez, maybe I don't need a Mercedes after all. Maybe this has grounded me and made me realize that, yeah, this is something that I want.
You can appreciate the little things in life.
Exactly.
Just a final question. Someone might be interested in helping, in being a coach or a volunteer. Do they have to be an expert at some sport?
Well, as with anybody, it is helpful, but definitely not. No, you can volunteer on a committee level and do a variety of different jobs within the committee, or you can volunteer as a coach, or you can do a little bit of both. Our coaches and our assistants don't necessarily have a real strong background in sport, but they just have the desire to give and to learn a little bit along the way.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
An archive is a place where people go to gather first-hand facts, data, and evidence from letters, reports, notes, memos, photographs, and other primary sources. In this final segment of Open Connection, we return to the archives with Barbara Shepard.
All paper materials, such as photographs, reports, school books, yearbooks, and scrapbooks, anything to do with paper.
Maps would be included in that then too.
Maps would be included, yes.
Yeah, maybe you could describe for us, and I know you've got a lot of stuff here, but maybe you could describe for us some of the more interesting items you have here in the archives.
We have over 4,800 photographs, and we have over 800 newspapers, and about 180 maps and charts, plus scrapbooks. We have all the telephone books going back to 1913. And a lot of club and organization records. School records, we have the Borden Street school records, the registers, starting from 1913 to 1956 when it was torn down. And we have other school records, church records, city records. We have a clipping file, quite an extensive clipping file from 1980 when we first started.
What intrigues me most about the city archives are the hundreds of old photographs in the collection. Pictures of old buildings can prove invaluable because the structures themselves often no longer exist. An ironic example of this occurred last November.
This is the Savoy Hotel, just being built in 1910.
That's awfully good quality for a 1910 photograph.
Yeah. We had good photographers in those days.
Photographer John Dando shot this video of the Savoy Hotel on Friday, November 3rd. The next morning, the vintage building was in flames and was destroyed. Shepard showed us a number of other old photos, and Dando's video captures the way they look now.
This is 2nd Avenue here. This would be where the mall is, and this is where the theater building is now. This is the old City Hall building, and this is Gordon Anderson's now. And this is where City Hall and government, federal building is. This is the old Prince Rupert Hotel.
Now what's there now?
Well, it's the new hotel was built. And this is taken from the courthouse grounds before the courthouse was built. And well, this is 4th Avenue East.
And that home up there still stands?
Yes, it is still there. This is 7th Avenue, and this would be 6th Avenue now. This is a church, McDonald House. And this is the Pillsbury House, which was built in 1907.
That's still here.
That's still there, and this is the old dock.
So the CN station would be down where that is now?
Yes. And this was Center Street. This is 3rd Avenue West, the 600 block. That's the Universal building there now.
That's a real mess.
Yes.
It looks it anyway.
That was in 1911. And in 1912, they had all this filled in.
Shepard says most of the items in the city archives are donated by individuals, businesses, and community groups, but there's a problem in the collection of archives. Many people have attics and basements full of old documents, books, and photographs, and Shepard says they may not know how important these seemingly useless things may be.
There's been a lot of materials thrown out that people don't realize that this is what we do.
So if somebody's in doubt, they should give you a call.
Yes, I would really appreciate a call. If they have anything and they can't come down here, we would pick it up.
Although a number of photos and documents are on display, Shepard says that's not the real purpose of the city archives. Preservation and storage are the reason the office exists.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind to his heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.